Hello, everyone. Welcome to Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing. This is Cody. I'm joined tonight by Dave and Justin, and we're going to be talking about a little indie puzzle game that we played on probably some various systems, I'm willing to bet. But we'll come back to that here in just a moment. Let's see, is this scheduled episode probably will come out in early summer. Let's maybe check in with the guys if they have anything they want to plug and or possibly share with us as a potential summer plan. So, Dave, why don't we hear from you first today?
Um, uh, so I've been trying to think of something to plug, but honestly, I've been
How
all
about your butt?
consumed by, yeah. You know what? Sure,
You see
my
the rails
butt.
back there? We've already
Check
gone
it
off.
out. Check it out. Um, Blueprints is a video game that I am obsessed with right now, and I haven't been playing anything else. And by the time this episode comes out, I might not have been playing anything else. And it's very much in the same vein as the game we're talking about tonight. So I'm going to talk a little more about it later. I talked about it last time in the last episode I did, so I won't bore anyone right now with it. But honestly, I have nothing else but work and family life, and Blueprints has been my only thing I'm enjoying for myself lately, and very happy with that.
Nice. Justin, how about you? What have you been up to?
Okay, kind of similar, but with a different game. It's not at all like what we're about to talk about today, but my free time has been devoured by the indie darling that has kind of taken the internet by storm, Clear Obscure Expedition 33. It is an absolutely pristine JRPG style game, despite the fact that it was made in France. It has a very classical Final Fantasy feel to it. Like when you could go into the world and everything felt new, everything felt creative, everything just felt fresh and vibrant and fully realized. Clear Obscure delivers on all of that. It is just an absolutely incredible game so far. I'm about maybe 8 hours into it, and I have loved every minute. Like you could take any frame from this game, and it is like you're in a painting. It's beautiful. It has just really likable characters. It hits emotional notes from comedy that is actually funny to surprisingly tear-jerking scenes. And yeah, it's such a unique and different world. The combat is fantastic. It's turn-based with real-time elements woven in, so you can like dodge and parry. So it's almost like if Dark Souls or Elden Ring was a turn-based RPG. Just an incredible piece of work, especially considering it was made by I think fewer than 3 dozen, a team of fewer than 3 dozen people.
Hmm.
Um, Incredible game. If you are at all curious about it, if you like RPGs in any way, shape, or form, you owe it to yourself to play it. It's only like $50, and it is better than most AAA games I've played in years. Um, that's kind of been my obsession lately, and
That's awesome.
yeah, it really is. And we'll see if I'm still playing it by the time this episode airs. But considering the game we're going to be talking about today does do some time skips as well, it seems fitting. So we'll see if a month in the future or whatever, I'm still in the middle of Clear Obscure.
I
Um,
thought you said you would only support remasters and remakes at this point.
no, that was Bizarro Justin from the
Oh, yeah.
from the Dark Dimension.
Yes, he had the goatee. I remember now. Very good. Very good. All right. Well,
Uh,
for me on my end, hopefully, well, yes, by the time this episode comes out, I will be through the game that I recently started, which is Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus, because I desperately wanted a different type of game to play after this one to kind of just cleanse my brain palette from this game we're about to talk to, and also the idea of shooting Nazis in 2025 was very appealing to me.
there
So
you go.
it's not a great game thus far, but we'll see by the time this rolls out. From the 30-minute video at the beginning of the game involving characters I didn't know because I never played the first game, up to the missions so far, we'll see where we get to with this one. But trying
uh,
to work through the backlog a little bit this summer. That's going to be one goal of mine, and then probably just after this one drops, also we'll be headed to New York and Boston for a trip. And one thing I have been doing that has been a hobby of mine, I may have talked about on the podcast in the last few years, is going to famous people's graves as like a little grave hunting activity. So I have not entirely yet, but started to look into the state of New York, which, as you can imagine, has a lot of famous dead people. So
Yeah, sure.
I think there's like 4,000 on this list that I'm looking at here. So I've been slowly going through and picking where they're at on cemeteries on Google Maps and then realizing I'm only really gonna have time to get to like three of these, but that's okay. It'll still be fun. So there we go. All right, well, we are here tonight to talk about a little indie game, as mentioned here, as we sometimes do in the podcast. This is Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. Wow. Dave came in costume tonight. He's got his background there. Don't remember her having a beard like that, but that might have been different playthroughs. I heard different experiences happen with players in this. So, quickly on this one, just kind of the intro stats as we have been doing here. This game has, at the moment, as of today, a 9 out of 10 on Steam, 9 out of 10 on IGN,
I believe it.
93% on Google for the likes, 88% for critics on Metacritic. Interestingly, only an 80% for users on Metacritic. Not that that's bad, but just interesting disparity there. Other deets here for this one, available first on Nintendo Switch and Windows. That was in May of last year, and then later came to the PS4 and PS5 towards the end of last year. Developer for this, I don't know if that's pronounced Simogo. Does anybody know for sure on that?
Nope.
Simogo, Simogo. I don't know them.
Simogo sounds plausible to me.
And the producer was the logo that kept coming up on the game's load screen that basically couldn't skip past, which is Annapurna Interactive. And basically, a game is described as just a puzzle adventure, I guess, on most sites, seems to be the consensus. The lore, if you will, or the summary of what's supposedly happening in this game, and we will talk about this a little further down here, but basically says a woman summoned by an eccentric man to participate in a project in an old hotel somewhere in Central Europe becomes embroiled in a game of illusions, increasingly dangerous and surreal. And it says, as the player, now you are invited to fall into the same rabbit hole in a nonlinear mystery with an immense amount of handcrafted puzzles, constantly presenting you with new riddles to solve, each leading you closer to deciphering the enigma of Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. We should get this out of the way right away. I was very disappointed you couldn't actually shoot lasers out of your eyes in this game because basically is the reason I wanted to play it. So
I
You
actually
didn't figure out how
considered.
to do that?
that the tampon was for? Damn it.
No, that's what the temperature meter was for. You had to like get it all the way up, and
Oh,
then.
you had to get hot and bothered first, and then
uh,
pew pew. Oh my goodness.
uh,
Hilarious. All right, so we're gonna go through a couple categories as we typically do. I will say probably if you're interested in this one, there might be like some lighter spoilers through the first chunk of this podcast, but I don't necessarily know that it's gonna go into like a full detailed spoiler as far as like how to solve puzzles or like what something might mean or anything like that, which is just not really necessarily the nature of the game, I don't think. But let's start with just a gameplay style and the style of the game, which I will say was really appealing to me. Like graphically, when I first saw some of the screens from this, it's got like a really almost like a noir, like focus on black and white with some shades of red thrown in there, which was I have always been a sucker for those three colors together. Like even back to when I was in high school art classes, I would try to always do black and white ink drawings and then just add like one element of red to the photo or to the picture as I would go through. So I called it centristagio, but that was a term I made up back then, so not a real thing.
Pistachio.
Yeah, that's right.
Massagio.
It's also the Halloween party theme. No, it's not. But anyway, um, so I mean, it just looks great. And then Dave
Yeah.
played this game slightly before we did, but just seeing the early screens of this one, was it the gameplay style that you were intrigued by, or what did like the graphics have an influence on trying to pull you in on this one a little bit?
I played this probably about 3 months ago with a couple of friends. We got together like once a week and played it online together, really just like two people watching while one person controlled it. Um,
Hmm.
and to be honest, what got me into it was my buddy saying, "Hey, we should play this together." So I didn't really know anything about this game going into it, other than that he was excited for it. But I agree with you that the visual style, the art direction is very appealing. It's very different from really anything else I can think of. And it was a big plus for me when playing the game. Um, just the black, white, and red, like you said. Justin, what did you think?
Um, yeah, the aesthetics were what grabbed my attention initially. I want to say I saw a trailer for this during like some game show or another like Tokyo Game Show or the Steam Next Fest or something before it came out. And I'm like that looks really cool. It looked, very, very stylistic, very different. It looked like it had an identity and it knew what it wanted to be.
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't really know what the story was about. So I just kind of like kept an eye on it and kept it in the back of my head. It came out, it got really good reviews, and I picked it up during like a small sale at some point, and I'm like, I'll get to that eventually. And then I think Cody, mentioned it in passing or something, and I'm like, I'd be up for doing an episode on this. And yeah, I went in aside from, knowing what it looked like, I went in completely blind on this. So I really didn't know what to expect other than a lot of grayscale and red.
Yeah, I'm going to move on here, but we had just recently recorded a review of Rise of the Golden Idol as well, and one thing I complained about in a few cases in that game was color palettes with my color blindness. So this game, fantastic, because black, white, and red. I was like, fantastic. This game's great. Oh my gosh.
Cody, the whole game was black, white, and green. Did nobody tell you?
Actually, that could be true. That's hilarious.
Oh.
That would not be the first time. So that's hilarious. Oh, that's good. All right. Well, this game does. We have seen some more recent games, and you guys may have played more of them than I. But like these kind of, they seem to be more indie style games, but games where you have multiple play styles within the same world. The same game that you're
Yeah.
going through, whether it's like driving or shooting or anything under the sun. And this one, for the most part, is third person adventure. Like you're walking through the titular hotel here, if you will, but in it's basically the tried and true formula of big creepy mansion, hotel, police station, whatever I have to go through and explore. And that part worked really well for me, but worth noting, minor spoilers here, I guess, but we get a lot of variety in terms of like just game play styles in this game as well. And I was just trying to come up with these like from my own head, but like um we definitely get like some of those real retro PC style moments where you're kind of like looking at real low res graphics. And I think those were like just two color basically, right?
Yeah, like a
Mhm.
point and click adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um so that was kind of interesting how they would go there. There were moments where you were like almost with like an old school Doom, like walking down hallways, like in first person kind of point of view and turning corners and things like that in some areas here. There were so a couple parts where you're in computer programs where you basically are reminded at one point how rough games got around the like 16 to 32 bit era right in there. Um,
Yeah, you're suddenly playing like the PlayStation 1 version of the game, and
yeah.
the non-tank controls have now become tank
Oh my
controls.
God. Did you guys have a ton of trouble when you'd come out of those? Because I would try to
Yes.
walk around the mansion and I was like, I can't do it anymore. What's going on?
I'm drunk. What happened? Yeah.
And then eventually I'd realize I
Uh,
was still using tank controls instead of, oh my God. There's a handheld game in this that you acquire as an item, which has like some other types of gameplay modes as well for some different games you play there. Um, and then there are also the sections in some mazes, which we can probably leave ambiguous like that, but there's kind of two real big mazes in this game. One of which is kind of more like that Doom style first person, and the other one kind of just being like a really different presentation of like um, controls are regular, but almost works similar to more like a Pac-Man map in a way. Like you can walk off one screen to another. More maybe like Legend of Zelda might be a better one. If you kind of like that
Yeah,
scrolling screen, might be a
yeah,
better comparison there. So how did you like the variety of modes you had in this game? I thought it was pretty cool.
yeah. I always like it when a developer shakes things up like that. I think, at least in recent memory, the only game I can think of that I've played that had more variety in its offerings of playstyles was probably My Side, which pretty much first person horror game for a lot of it, but at any given moment you might end up in like a racing game or like a first person shooter, or the racing game might turn into like a road blasters style thing where you actually like there's a boss all of a sudden, and it's just a whole bunch of really weird things that they worked in. And it whenever a developer does this sort of thing, it I like it because you never quite know what to expect. Like if the entire game for Lorelei was just exploring the mansion and whatnot, and occasionally interacting with a puzzle in first person, it's like that would have been fine. But not ever quite knowing what this next thing that you unlock is going to present you with, I think it was really neat because it kept things engaging.
Yeah, I agree. I really like the variety and the fact that you never knew what the game was going to do. Truly.
That's true. And you get so like into the game at various points too. Like I know I had seen pictures of some of those like PC point and click it screens from the game before I played the game. And then like it was so far into the game that when one popped up, I was like, wait, what is happening right now? Like this is in I had totally forgotten about it. So it's pretty fun. Another game play aspect of this is let's just call them, I guess, interrogation scenes, wherein something will activate and you're thrown into basically like this still life moment that you have to study and then like take a quiz on, which I actually loved that part as well because it was very like the game for the most part does not have a lot of chance to it. But with that one, there was always a chance that there would be like the one question they would ask that I'd be like, oh crap, I can't remember. Like there was one they asked me a question on that I was like, I guess I didn't like see that in it. Like it wasn't that I
Hmm.
forgot it, I just never saw it and then got it wrong and died. Which we should mention, you can't die in this game as well, which
Hmm.
didn't seem to be the case at first either. So
Yeah.
So I didn't love those actually,
yeah, go for it.
because of the fact that you can die. We should clarify. So if you haven't played this game, we're talking about like going around a mansion, kind of Resident Evil style. There really are no enemies in this game, except for the creepy guys who bring you into these scenes that we're talking about. And at
Hmm.
first, we were like, running away from them. But then pretty soon we were like, yeah, sure, bring it on.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I just saved, no problem. But the thing is, if you haven't just saved and
Yeah.
you fail these interrogations, then you lose your progress since you last saved.
Yeah.
And I see why the developers did that, why it's interesting to them, and I do agree at some level it's interesting, but that's I didn't like that particular decision, and I don't know. It was something that was unique to the game and interesting, but ultimately not what I enjoyed about the game.
That's fair.
Yeah, I'm not sure they were entirely necessary, really. I mean, sure, they added a level of surrealism to the events, but the throwing sudden loss of the potential for sudden loss of progress at you, and having that happen sometimes because you didn't notice the wrench under the chair or something like that. It just it felt a little bit at odds with the overall more contemplative nature of the game, where you're trying to logically think through stuff and whatnot, but it's just like, oh, if I didn't turn the camera just this way, I didn't notice this one
Hmm.
item, and now I'm dead. um I didn't hate them, but I do see where Dave's coming from.
Yeah, I think that's fair criticism. I enjoyed them just from like the risk aspect that they added to the game, but it is different also than you should point out there's another place in the game where you can kind of push your luck a little bit if you want to try to take a guess on something as well. And you have the option in that situation of whether you want to go through with it or not. So as far as the like save your progress aspect, like you could back out of that situation. This one you're kind of just in and you have to take a shot at it to see if you can solve it or not.
Yeah,
So
I want to touch on those without spoiling anything real
yeah, go
quick
for it.
because I didn't realize you could back out. I thought if you chose the option that's basically, spare my life or whatever, I figured, the person you were talking to would have been disgusted with your cowardice and just shot you anyway. That's what
Mm,
I expected. So for the longest time, I avoided that section because I didn't realize you could actually just back out and think things through.
okay. That section was funny because I also, when I played, didn't realize that you could access your notes in those sections either. Like that's also one of the options, although not worded quite as such. And I was like, oh crap, this is pretty hard. But then I realized you could do that too. So yeah.
I have a completely different complaint about that section, but we'll get to it. We'll get to
Oh,
it.
okay. All right.
All right.
Sounds good.
On the subject of notes, though, real quick, I will
Hmm.
say when you start up this game, it does suggest playing in a dimly lit room with a pen and paper on hand. And this is one of those games where I don't think it's been since Signalis that I've actually had handwritten notes for at least something for that we've covered. And I had like 5 or 6 pages of handwritten notes in a notebook for this by the time I was done with it, and I've missed that in games. So you could reference most everything, in your memories in like a little, menu, but having, just an actual like record of all of my thoughts and approaches to things as we went, I think that's cool, and it's something more games should implement more often.
Yeah, agreed. I think I had a page of notes the first night I played it, and then I was like, I don't need these, and I like stopped for a while. But then when I got a little further, yeah, I think I finished with like six, well, 3 pages front and back that, if somebody else looked at my notes right now, which I still kept, I have them downstairs still, like they would think I'm insane because it's just like numbers scrawled across numbers diagonally and like lines drawn and letters trying to do all these things. And I agree. It was super fun. And this is a smidgen to like kind of the next thing here to talk about, but just I loved that the note system, which they kind of pass off as like photographic memory in the game world. I love that it kept track of everything like a giant encyclopedia for you so that I didn't have to write down that stuff. And that's why I think at first I was like, well, I don't need to keep track of this stuff because I have notes for everything. But
Yeah.
you come across so many puzzles in this game, and you're like, can I solve this puzzle based on what I have right now? Let me try to just tinker some stuff down. And there'd be some times where you like solve a puzzle, and you're like, I don't even know what this puzzle's to yet, but like I can put some pieces together. Or you might come across like a lot to unsolve later or solve later rather. And then, you're kind of referencing back through some of the stuff you looked at. That particularly towards the end game, I will say a lot of those notes were like huge.
Yeah.
Um, Not referencing anything specific here, but like even Justin, I think I was like, I only have like two of these that I wrote down, and then like this, I dug further through my notes, and by God, I had like 5 or 6 down already that I had done, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know I had those on there. Like they're
Yeah.
so crazy looking. So I love the balance of like them not making you keep track of everything yourself, but also like how much you had to use all that stuff to find answers as well. Yeah. Last thing I had here for gameplay and style, so worth mentioning, Dave, you said already that there's not really enemies in this game per se. And, so I'm thinking of like frequent host Joe, who does not like scary games. This might be a game where like if you looked at the visuals just from some of the concept art or like the trailer, you might assume this is like a horror game,
Yeah.
and it's not. And that's kind of, but it is creepy at times. It is a
True.
little uneasy at times. And I have to ask, did you guys jump at anything in this game as you played through? Because holy
There's
cow, I
Uh,
swore at one moment.
there's one moment in
yep.
particular that I had forgotten about until just now.
Yep. Same.
And I think we're all talking about the same one.
So
And
good.
I will say that the two people I was playing with saw it coming, and I did not. And I was the one controlling it. And oh my God, that's we we can't spoil it, but I know I'm happy that we're all on the same page, that we all know exactly what we're talking about. It was a fun moment.
Yes,
It
for
was.
sure.
Oh my God.
For sure. Oh my
Uh,
God, loved it. All right.
uh,
Let's chat a little bit about other features or controls in the game. We mentioned a lot about the Well, we didn't mention inventory. We mentioned the notes, like the note-taking system in the game. What did you think of the inventory system in the game, out of curiosity?
um, oh, okay. Did any of you get to a point where you filled up your inventory?
I feel like I came close, but I don't think I ever filled it up.
Okay, I got to a point where I could have, and I didn't know what would happen if I did, so that really kind of prompted me to go back and try to figure out what some of the items I had were actually for.
Hmm.
Yeah, I honestly don't know if you can fill it up, but it does look limited on the screen. So, um, I liked it because you could examine the items, and they would tell you a little bit about,
Hmm.
some things that were hints for puzzles, others
Yeah.
that were just really interesting. Like, I keep meaning to look up whether it's true that, there were messages scrawled on, like in black ink on the Ace of Spades on like playing cards that were, found throughout Europe in like the 1930s or whatever. Because if that's true, that's really weird and interesting and a cool historical thing they worked in. Or if
Yeah.
they just made it up, that's also kind of cool. But yeah, there's a lot of like secondary like background detail if you look through the descriptions of stuff. And having played a lot of Souls like games over the years, I've kind of gotten used to that, and I appreciate it when games add extra lore that way.
Awesome. Yeah, I think Justin, I was maybe like an item away from filling up too, and never did fill up, but I really worried about it several times. So I also wondered, like, behind the scenes, is it possible to fill it up or not? Like,
Yeah.
maybe if you had different things, like, I don't know, computer disks, or there's some things that do take up space, but maybe you can't access those other items unless you've used some of the other items. I'm not sure, but I
Right.
also wondered that, like, would it scroll, or is it just set up so well that you actually can't fill it? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Cody, you briefly mentioned this before, but you
Yeah.
start the game with a tampon in your
Yes.
inventory, which I
Yes.
thought was both funny and just immediately like lets you know that this is a different kind of game.
Yeah.
And we my buddies and I like the first thing when you come across something, you always try the tampon first because we were waiting. We were
There's a
waiting
hole in the statue.
for
Yeah, I tried
either
that.
it to finally become useful or for like a trophy to pop that we like
Hmm.
had successfully tried the tampon on every possible thing that we could. And neither happened, but I wasn't mad about it. I just thought that's just a little thing to set the game apart.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Same thing. I was like, what is the purpose of this? Like, I'm going in the bathroom and trying to come out of the bathroom, and I'm like, nothing's happening here. Like, what are we doing? Yeah. Which is also kind of different in this game. You actually can go in a bathroom and
Mhm.
flush the toilet, which is
And you can
like,
choose whether or not to wash your hands.
Oh
yeah,
yeah, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
forgot about that
there
too.
there's a lot of weird like systems that don't seem to do a lot in this.
Is there a
Like there's
purpose to the hand washing? Yeah, I don't
I don't
know.
know. I always did it just because I'm not a filthy animal,
I
but
tried it both ways, but I don't know.
yeah. Well, there's like a temperature gauge. I for the life of me, I still don't know if that does anything. I mean, taking on or putting off your jacket changed, like how much it filled up. So, but it didn't really. I never caught a cold. I never like fainted from overheating or anything. Um,
I was
yeah,
very
there's
diligent about that jacket. If I went outside, I had the jacket on, and when I came inside, that jacket came off.
nice. Uh,
Apparently, there's a trophy for it, but I didn't get it because I didn't do it enough times. I don't
Oh,
know.
wow.
I did get the trophy for petting the dog.
That's interesting.
That's another thing that I did so many times. It didn't get the trophy. I was like,
Oh,
that's
Oh,
bullshit. Come on, game. You
I
gotta
took
lower
the
the threshold on that.
I took the
yeah.
jacket off and was like, I'm done with the jacket. All right, so I like that you guys were being a little more thematic there. I didn't think about that. So yeah, but that's it's interesting too. You go into like the sub screen here, the menu screen, and there's like like Justin's saying, there's all these gauges, or there's like
It's
how
like a
much you have
bladder
to
meter.
pee, your
Yeah.
bladder meter,
Yeah.
and your temperature, and
How much caffeine you
um
have in your system.
caffeine. And it looks like, I mean, when I first started the game, I'm like, oh, these are going to be huge, like balancing all these. I don't know how I'm going to like that because I don't like micromanaging in those types of games, but
Yeah.
Nope.
Turns out mostly there for looks. What did you guys think of the coffee system in the game?
I rarely used it.
Yeah, I used it one time, I think.
I used it a couple, like especially towards the end where I'm like I'm at 90 something percent. I just want to kind of get through this. So I would drink coffee then just to try to
Mm,
get to backtrack quicker. Because there's a lot of backtracking in this game. Let's say that.
yes.
Um, but I appreciate that, it was in there as a thematic way to go faster, I guess. But
It also,
there's
at least in my game, like it happened so late in the game though that like it was
yeah,
almost not useful at that point.
Yeah,
fair.
yeah. Well,
Um,
speaking of backtracking,
yeah.
can we talk about the puzzle doors? So I thought that was a really, really cool mechanic. So at one point you find a book that's just full of puzzles. How many are in there? Like 20?
I think
20, I
20.
think.
And
Yeah.
there are 20 locked doors throughout the house that you can open if you approach it from the correct side and you have solved that page's puzzle. Um, I thought those puzzles were great. I really liked them, and I feel like the reward of opening the door so you have to backtrack less was a really great way of rewarding players for solving those puzzles. It bugged me that the book was called Volume 1 because I was waiting for Volume 2. I was really looking forward to
Oh,
doing
Same.
more of those puzzles, and the Volume 2 never existed. Um,
Yeah.
but just in general, I really like that system, that book.
yeah. Totally agree. When I got that book, I it filtered into my inventory. And I had well, first when I got the book, I looked at the puzzles and I was like, "Oh, these look really hard." And then I actually forgot I had the book, and so like I was maybe like midway through the game before I unlocked one of those because I didn't even remember I had the book, and everyone was
Oh,
like,
okay.
"Put a
Oh, geez.
combo in," and I was like, "I don't know what the combo is. How am I supposed to know?" And I'm like going around the mansion looking for clues, and like there's just
Ah.
nothing anywhere that corresponds to those. And then
Hmm.
finally, I think maybe Justin said something or something, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, SC's like this guy. Okay, I gotcha." So we
Hmm.
got him.
Yeah, initially, because it's not spoiling much to say that all of those puzzles are in like they're like combination safes. It's like a dial you turn.
Yeah.
I initially kept failing them because I figured you had to like go all the way one way and then like back another way and then like land on the
Okay.
third time on what the answer was. And yeah, nope, you just go straight to the number. So just for any of our listeners who are listening, are curious to try this out, save yourself some time. It's just you go to the number, you press the button, and if you're right, it opens. So
Yeah. I think there was one that I might have brute forced. Just went through like 100 combos.
oof.
It didn't take as long as I thought it would take, but I was like, still, this is, which was also kind of nice. Like, you could do that if you needed to, but it was at the expense of time for sure to do that. So, let's just
I,
go back to the coffee for 1 second. I made sure I drank enough coffee that I had to pee at one point. I
mm,
thought maybe that would trigger something because the bladder was
oh
full
no.
then. And so I went to the bathroom and like it reset, and I was like, oh, this is disappointing. Like, that's what we got there.
Yeah,
Though
it was a strange inclusion of
well,
that
I did tell,
system.
I don't know if you remember or not, Dave, but I did tell Justin I used coffee as I went into one of the two mazes at one point in the game. It was the maze that had the swirling walls, and using the coffee in there was like fucking acid, man. It was insane. Like shit was just flying at you while
Oh
everything was
God.
swirling.
Oh,
It was pretty cool. So
that's a damn good cup of coffee.
it was a damn good cup of coffee, I tell you. It's good. It's well worth the subscription cost. I gather on the PC there wasn't as well. This is a control gripe of mine, but would it have killed to like have a back button or a map button?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that gets to the one downside of the color scheme. Um, so much of the mansion is in black and white that a lot of areas do start to look samey after a while. And there were times where I was like, "Oh, I found this thing that is like the key to opening this puzzle that I found like 4 hours ago. Where was it?" And yeah, I spent a lot of time just wandering around trying to remember where stuff was, just
Yeah, true.
because, yeah.
Oh, for sure. And
Um,
and Cody, what you're saying about the back button, that made me crazy. So apparently from what I've read and heard, that was like a design decision on their part to make it like, control like one analog stick, one button, and that's it. Let's simplify these controls as much as possible. But the lack of a back button really, really hurt. And I kept pressing the wrong button
Yeah.
hours and hours
Mhm.
into the game. I was frustrated by that and didn't really ever get used to that. Um,
Sure.
there's some things that are cool to innovate on, but that one was just like moving backwards. And there's a reason that controllers have more than one button and one stick,
Yeah,
Take
Yeah.
theoretically,
advantage.
you could have played this with like an old Atari joystick. Thinking about it, because just the one button and then just the directions to move.
And if
That's
that's what they were going for,
fun.
good for them, I guess. It
Uh,
frustrated me.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's probably my biggest gripe of the game was that not having an easy map access and
yeah.
also not being able to back out of stuff. And then I kept like going back and forth between the left side of the menu and the right side of the menu, and I was trying to exit, and I was like, "Oh my God,
Mm,
just
yeah.
get me
Yeah.
out of here."
Yeah.
Was
That
curious,
was.
not really a puzzle feature, but just a game feature. How much did you guys play around with the phone book in the game?
I found a few numbers. I called them, and I didn't really, I didn't really mess with it too much beyond that.
Yeah,
Because it was like what 10 pages long, with each page having a good 20 names on it. Maybe not that
yeah,
many, but a lot
it
of
was a lot.
names. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, same
Did you
here. We
did
weren't really like just blindly trying stuff.
did you actually call them all, Cody?
Oh God, no. I
Oh.
considered it. I definitely tried every year that was mentioned anywhere in the game, and I
Hmm.
Hmm.
think I think there were like maybe two that didn't hit, but everything else did have like a story that picked up, and like you talked to
Oh.
somebody, whether it was like an old friend or like somebody that knew you as a kid, or like it
Oh.
was seemed to be tied in with the year you were calling, essentially, maybe kind of what the thing you were going to get on the other end was. But it was, each one was like maybe two lines of dialogue and then like, oh, have to run, like the tea's gonna boil over or something like that, like very short for the most part, other than the ones you need to call for the game. So, but I did like it was there. I mean, it was a cool system again. Not like you could, I don't know, you could go down the rabbit hole. I don't know how many actually work. Be kind of curious if I could find that answer later.
I will
Yeah.
say, the phone book misled me, because one of the first things you're supposed to do after you get to the mansion and explore a little bit is like call the guy you're supposed to meet, and
Yeah.
you get a name for him. So I find the phone book and I'm looking for his name in the book. I'm like, I don't see his name. And yeah, I know he's in the mansion somewhere, but I'm like, okay, maybe you find that later. So it was probably a good like 4 or 5 hours in before I actually decided to just call his room number. And
Oh,
it's like, oh,
really?
he picked up. Yeah, I was overthinking it
Yep.
by a lot. So
Had the same problem, honestly, because it looked like everything had to be six digits, and then the room numbers, of
yeah.
course, are four. So
Mhm.
that's all right, let's talk about puzzles a little bit more here. Good ones, bad ones. From what I see online, I think there are upwards of more than 150 puzzles altogether in the game, which seems kind of incredible having now gone through the game that's how many we went through. But
That sounds about right, actually.
so puzzles, let's talk about puzzles. What did you like? What didn't you like? There's a certain one or like a type of puzzle.
I liked most of the ones behind the numbered doors, like the ones with that you
Oh,
could
yeah.
unlock.
Those were
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, because you really had to think outside the box for those. Those were probably among my favorites, just overall. Ones I didn't like. The one that sticks out to me is, I'm not gonna say where it is or like what it exactly pertains to, but there's one late in the game where you have to transcribe basically coordinates on a map, and you see part of the map like on the floor, and then there's a thing on the wall where you have to basically say what it translates to. Some of them are kind of straightforward, and once you realize others you have to look at, it's like, oh, you need to rotate them or whatever. It's like, that's
Mm-mm.
fine until you get to a set that the map you're looking at, all of the coordinates you're looking at are squares. But the thing on the wall, you're sliding something on the line between squares, and all of the junctions between the squares correspond to squares on the map. It's like trying to do a crossword puzzle, but you're filling in the letters in between the boxes. And I hated that because it just didn't, something in my mind wouldn't process lines versus boxes in terms of like where something should line up. It never felt like it was lined up in the right spot, even when I finally figured out where it was supposed to be. And often it felt like I was just stabbing blindly in kind of a like a general area, hoping to finally get it right. I hated that puzzle so much.
Yes, I know this is pretty late game what you're talking about here. I remember you venting about this one. I didn't have a problem with this one at all. So this was, different strokes for different folks type thing. But I know this was one you said really stuck in your craw.
Mhm.
Definitely playing through. Um,
Um,
Go ahead, Dave.
I don't remember that puzzle, so
Oh,
I don't, apparently it wasn't too bad for me either. But I will say there were a couple puzzles that like I didn't know how to do, but my buddies were like, "Oh, do this and this and this." Like they grokked it real quickly when I did not. For me, we got stuck for a long time on you have the 10 puzzle boxes and then this just very minor spoilers here. You have the 10 puzzle boxes and then you have the 10 corresponding doors. And we had realized that and were trying desperately to study these doors so that we could understand from them how to open the corresponding puzzle boxes. And really spent a long time doing that. Like, stopped the game, spent a week looking at screenshots in between gaming sessions,
Wow.
tried to figure it out until finally learning that a whole different section, which for whatever reason, that section presented to us as like an optional thing or like a post game thing. It seemed like something like we can do that later maybe, but that's not integral to moving forward. And it turned out that it was, and that
Mm.
it was the solution to the puzzle that we were trying to solve. We just made some bad assumptions. And that's not really on the game so much as it's on us, but it was still very frustrating. But in general, other than that, I really loved the puzzle design, and I thought that things like the movie posters
Hmm.
and it's been a while, so I don't remember everything, but I was generally very pleased with the puzzle design.
Yeah, agreed. Justin, like you, came to love the perspective puzzles, as I'm calling them, like behind the room numbers. Um, I hated them at first because when I would go into those rooms, I would look around and I'd be like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be looking at in this room. And then like later I got one of them. And once I got one, I was like, oh, this clicks now, like what I'm doing. Because I kept reading the little like placard on each of the rooms, and I was like, is there supposed to be a hint in here? And I was like, and there
Mm,
were
yeah.
kind of hints, but like really you were okay doing it without the hint probably as well on a lot of them. But then once they started to go pretty fast. So I did like those quite a bit. Dave, agree with the movie posters. Like it's a really simple style of puzzle, but like what a fun way to just like take a 4-digit code and like make a bunch of puzzles out of a 4-digit code that are all just a little bit different from each other. Like it could have been very repetitive and like yeah, I get that it kind of is the same type of puzzle, but it was just fun enough that it was different.
Oh, and
One
the blocks with the four horsemen. Sorry, I just
Yes, and
remembered.
that's
I
what I was just
really
gonna
ah,
say. I was just
okay,
gonna say that
okay.
one. I loved that one. I was very frustrated by it at times, but I loved that one. Oh,
yeah.
I
There were
was.
times where it's like I don't want to spoil anything, but I figured the puzzle was looking for, say, like an M, and it was nope, it's a W, but turned a different way.
Yep.
Hmm.
And yeah, and even the M had to be turned a different way, so it's just kind of like, yeah. But once it clicked, yeah, it's like that is really neat.
I
So
tried forever to get one of them to work, and then finally one worked, and I was like, okay, great. I got this one down, and then I was like, I need this block, this block, this block, and then I need that other block, block I'm talking about here. And then like I solved a couple of them, and I got the other block, and that one worked, and like I still had one, and I was like, what the f is the problem with this one? Like this last one will not solve with the blocks I have left. And then I finally realized what they wanted me to put into that one, and it was just like ever so slightly different than what I was putting in. And I was like, oh my God, come
yep.
on. Like, but I still thought those were really fun puzzles overall. Um, What else in here? Yeah, the mazes I thought were kind of fun too. The first person maze I enjoyed quite a bit just because it was basically the other maze, but just massified. It was so big. Like I'd be like, I'm gonna hug the wall in this maze as I typically do when I'm in a maze.
Yeah.
And you can walk for quite a while in that one maze, and you were like, well, I haven't found anything that I've seen so far yet, so keep walking. That one was really, really good though. And then I mean, in general, in terms of like my biggest compliment, I think for the game in general is the puzzles I thought were really well done and also like just hard enough that they were always a little bit challenging, but I only really got stuck like once or twice, which I thought was like a great balance of the difficulty on the puzzles in the game. So
Yeah.
there is a little, I will say, for people that may play this game, there are a couple puzzles that like you find extremely early in the game that don't pay off until extremely late in the game, though. That was a little frustrating because there were, how many times I went to go try that puzzle and I was like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do in this thing, but
Yeah.
been here for 10 hours of gameplay, so apparently I'm supposed to have it by this point, so let's try it. And then some of the weak points for puzzles for me, one was, without saying too much here, the developers did rely a little bit on a couple of combinations being the same in the game when they probably could have had a little more variety on some of those puzzles.
Yeah.
If it was like I was stuck, I'd be like, let's pull out the old trusties here and see what I can get to work in this one spot.
Yeah.
So that was one. The Orange Grove in the back, opening that at first was a little bit of a challenge for me as well. I will say, I think I did take a peek on that one, how to help there. And then the fucking piano.
Deceptively simple.
Yes. I complained to Justin. I was like, why does every mansion game have to have a piano since like Resident Evil 1? Is that the first one that I can blame for all of this? Like everybody's like, we gotta make a piano sheet music puzzle.
There,
Hee hee hee.
there
And I'm
might have
like,
been
oh
one
my
in the seventh
God.
guest.
There might have been.
Yeah.
That one stumped me for a long time too, until like Justin said it was okay, it was way easier than it was
Hmm.
apparently on the surface. Which was a couple of
Yeah.
these, I will say. Some look really hard and then you're like, oh, like I'm making this way too hard.
Yep.
Kind of like you're saying, Dave, with the puzzle boxes almost
Yeah.
paid itself back off. Anything else you guys got? Good puzzles, bad puzzles you remember?
Um, there was one I remember asking you for help on, and it was numbers that related to names that were attached to like like busts, statues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and that one it led me astray for the longest time because there are corresponding statues in a different area of the game, and those were all like they were just labeled by title, like the actor or the magician or that sort of thing. The creator, I think, was one of them, and I was trying to figure out how those corresponded to this like seemingly random string of letters and numbers, and I wasn't exactly overthinking it, but there was a layer beneath that where those people all had, something else they were called by, and it's like, oh, okay, so I need to transcribe that onto these like coded numbers and letter strings, and then use those to, then figure out what the combination is to this other thing. And that one just I was bashing my head against that for probably a couple of days at least.
Hmm.
Um, it was interesting once I figured out, what the hell I was supposed to be doing with it, but man, it was a bit obtuse at the time.
I'm ashamed to
Um,
admit this, but another one I just thought of that took me a really long time to solve, like way too long to solve, was when you just went in the exhibition on the second floor and there was like just the head statue with the 9 spots and the 5 letters.
Same.
That took me forever. I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing right now. I was like trying to read scramble the 5 letters to like make words out of it, and like
I
I
was
came
thinking
up
like
with
the
like a vague word, but
and I was thinking like the empty spaces had to factor in somehow, and yeah, that one threw me too.
Same
Uh,
same actual answer though, which was overthinking the problem apparently, which was
yep.
once I saw it, I was like, oh my God, like.
Yeah.
But also, like a lot of answers can be found in this game through your notes. But if you haven't played this game before, when we say there are notes that it's keeping track of, we're talking like there must be 150 files at least in this game with like software reports and letters and journals and signs and magazine covers and like books that have multiple pages. I mean, there are, I don't know how many pages of text in your notes in this game. So
Yep.
even when you were like, did I hear about this thing before? I think I did. And then you're like, where's it at? Is it in my Latin phrases book? Is it in my lunar calendar book? Is it in my Greek letters book? Where is it
It was
at here?
it was 8 hours ago. It's a secret to everyone. Yeah,
Yeah, but
it's
don't forget
yeah.
the clock runs fast or something like that also. I was like, oh
Oh
my
God,
God.
yeah, that part. Wow.
I, I also felt that the end, and I'm going to keep this as spoiler free as possible, the end was like a gauntlet of me being ready for the game to be over and the game demanding that I really had put all the pieces together. Like, it's just like a pop quiz at the end of the game. You want to beat this game, you have to
Eh,
prove that you understand everything that's been happening in this weird, fucked up game.
Yeah,
Um, and
that's true.
I didn't like that. Did you guys feel the same way about that
I
part?
I definitely got to a point where I was ready for it to be over. Um, and yeah, it was a bit demanding at times. I didn't find the last bit to be too bad, but there's a part leading up to the last bit where, again, I'm also going to try to keep this as spoiler free as possible. But you needed a string of like Greek letters,
Oh boy.
and those translated into like other letters and numbers,
Mm.
and all of those were found in like a certain subsection of what you were doing in the entire game. The problem was when you were engaged in that subsection, you couldn't look at your notes.
Yeah.
So you had to remember, okay, if I do this thing, does that correspond to this, or this? And if you forgot which one it was, sure, you'd get an answer, but then it's like, oh crap, which one was that? Is it this, or this? And I only need like A, B, or C. I only need B. Did I accidentally get A? And then you have to like go back and navigating through all of that to get back to the point where you have to do it. It felt kind of, if they had just let you access your notes in that section, it would have helped a lot. But I had all the answers written down. I hadn't thought to write them in the order that I discovered them, so I had to go back and rediscover them
Oh, that's a
again.
pain. That's a pain.
Yeah, and it just that was a low point in the game for me, definitely. So if they had just made the
Mhm.
notes accessible in those sections, it would have been so much better.
Yeah, which is
Um,
weird they weren't. I mean, I guess is
yeah,
it because of the one button thing? Is that why? I guess
Would
because
have
you
required
can't
a second button.
would
Can't do
require a
it.
yeah,
second
we can't have
button.
that.
Yeah,
What is
would
this,
require
2025?
a second laser eye for that to work that way. But um, oh yeah, I'm trying to think what else I got here that's not spoilery as well. Um. I will say for without kind of going into the plot, although I'm considering having us get to a rating here and then maybe just do a smidge of spoiler discussion afterwards if people want to stay around for that part, maybe we could do that. But I will say for a game that is very um both solid as in the mansion you're walking around and things you're interacting with, and also like ethereal to some of the stuff that's happening as well, but also a lot of like electronic mumbo jumbo with like video games and computer programming and things like this. And so like you never really know what's real and what's happening in this game as you're playing through, which at times I really enjoyed, but also like I do think it's a bit of a story writing crutch sometimes with these puzzle games like this, where they're like basically coming up with some kind of overly convoluted plot in order to give us a good puzzle experience. And for the most part, I'm here for the puzzle experience. So if the plot's not as up to snuff, I'm mostly okay with that. But I do kind of
Yeah.
wish sometimes there was like a more direct payoff as to like, here's what the answer really was or something that was more Crystal as the plot line because the game is over and like, non-spoiler, spoiler. I don't know for sure what the hell happened in this game. I will say.
Yeah, me either.
Um,
Yeah, I have leanings, but I don't know if they're right. Uh, so
the only
yeah,
thing I've seen online is people fighting about what they think the game might mean as well. So in terms of
fair.
what's real, what's not real, I guess maybe we don't need to go through a separate section there.
Mhm.
Then if everybody's more or less in the same boat.
Mhm.
I did want to ask, this was the one thing I thought of just as we were coming on the air here. Do you know how when you first go in the mansion and in the first room there was like a bulletin board of all the events of the hotel and you could like click and it was like I don't even know what there all was, like palm reading, blah blah blah. They had all these different things on there you could do.
Mhm.
And I think for the most part all of those pay off in the game with the exception of I was going to ask you guys, the one says meet in the backyard for the ghost tour, which I didn't feel like ever really happened, which I'd be fine with, except everything else did happen that was on that list. So then I was like, did I miss a ghost tour somewhere? But then I wasn't sure also now thinking about it if they were just referencing that one thing in the backyard that does happen like a third of the way
Mhm.
through the game.
I think that's the best I can think of that I can
Yeah,
remember.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I will minor spoilers. There is a ghost, and I think it is connected to what you were talking about in the backyard.
Okay.
So that was my interpretation of that one.
Okay. Very good. Um, great. Well, that's all I really have before our final ratings here. Is there anything else about the game you guys want to touch on that we missed?
I've got a couple of final notes, just bullet points in my notes for Justin. What was that game that is very like Twin Peaks inspired?
Deadly Premonition.
Mm.
Thank you. I knew if I asked you would know. Um, the a lot of the this game reminded me of that game, specifically the voice
Yes.
acting. Like this is the campiest voice acting you'll find outside of Deadly Premonition that I've come across. So if you that's some people are gonna love that, some people are gonna hate that. I actually don't care for it, but I
Oh,
also think that it's fun for people who do like it. Um, and what I really wanted to call out as a high point of this game for me was the music. I thought that it was truly
Mm.
excellent. Even just sitting on the main menu, I would do that for like 10 minutes, just enjoying that. And then like every now and then there's just like a full song in the middle of this game, and I loved it. I really vibed with the music in this game. I
yeah.
think that's all I had.
Um, I will second the music. Like I have had on occasion the song that plays during the end credits. It'll just pop into my head and it'll kind of be stuck there for a little bit because it is just it's good. It has a really good beat to it. It ties into everything that happens in the game pretty well, and it's just yeah, really well composed. There's a sequence where you end up dancing with another character, and that the it's just kind of an instrumental piece behind it. But that scene, I think, will stick with me for a really long time because it's just as you're dancing, it's like a conversation, and I don't want to spoil it, but like the end takeaway, the message from that whole exchange is just really poetic, I think. And I might be giving the writing maybe too much credit, but that one, it just really sticks with me. And there's a lot of subtext in this game, and sometimes it ties in with the music in really nice ways. Um, so um, yeah, it's got layers. It's like an ogre or a parfait.
Yeah, that's great. I think that the game can be maybe interpreted a few different, and I mean, you could really probably make an argument for like some vastly different interpretations of what happens in this game. I mean, there seems to be like more of a kind of general framework consensus online, but I think that is all assuming that you're taking a few things one way to begin with. So, like I said, the fact that we have different years involved, we have different characters involved, we have uh, electronic worlds involved. I mean, we have all kinds of different things here that just overlap, and it's like, this could really be a lot of different answers, I feel like. So I do enjoy that, although again, I kind of wish there was more just like direct, here's what was behind all this to some of these games sometimes. So, all right, well, let's do this then. Let's put a final rating on this. And I don't know if anybody does, but maybe if you have a recommendation of another game somebody might want to play past this. I know Dave's got one there that he's been chatting about. Maybe Justin can think of something. We'll see. But I can go first on this one. I don't mind. The highest compliment I can give the game is I thought the puzzles were fantastic. There were options also, which I don't know that, we kind of hinted at that, but it's not a linear puzzle game. Like it's really free roam explore and you find a puzzle and maybe you solve this one, maybe somebody else solved this other one first, and you kind of take some meandering routes to get to the same place, which I did enjoy. And I liked that every time I felt like I was stuck on something, I could go someplace else, and there was something else I felt like I could at least work towards. Even when I was fully stuck on a puzzle, there was like usually something else I could go do and try to solve instead. But the biggest thing I can say about this game really is just that I was always very excited to stop what I was doing to go play it, which it was a shorter game. It's not like a 100-hour marathon like other games are, but
Yeah.
it's probably been a while since I've played a game where I've stopped doing other things I should be doing because I just wanted to go play this other game so badly. Um, so that's like the highest compliment I think I can give the game. We reviewed a few recently that was not the case for. So for me, the puzzle difficulty was just about perfect everywhere. There were a few that I needed help with, which is how I feel it should be set up. Um, I point out also, I guess, the hosts of the podcast here are like escape room veterans, and we've been around the block with puzzles as well. So if you're somebody who's not a puzzle person, this could be a really challenging game, I bet.
Yeah.
So that's worth noting as well. But for me, this was fantastic. I'm going to give this game 9 out of 10.
Nice. You want to go next, or should I?
Go for it.
Okay. Cody, did you have another game you wanted to recommend in a similar vein, or?
Um, well, it's not similar per se, but one game I had played in the past, I think before the podcast, or maybe it was just when we never reviewed because I played it, but for some reason this made me think of with the big mansion you're going through and exploring and how space kind of is used in one way, and then with the shortcuts it's kind of used a different way. And there are some recycled sceneries in this game. I'll leave it at that, but really made me think back to the indie horror game I told you about a couple years back called Perception, where you play as a blind woman and your only source to see is by tapping your cane on the ground. This is like an echolocation type mechanic. But that game was extremely creepy, with something that's in the houses with you, but then B, also, if you pay attention enough, you kind of see how they are recycling some physical spaces in that game in really unique and creative ways. So for whatever reason, this made me think of that game a little bit, although that's not necessarily a big puzzle game. I think you do collect things and activate things and of that nature, but you're not doing like word problems and number problems and things like this. But made me think of that though.
Nice, nice. Okay, so I, like I said, from the first trailer for this, it was on my radar, and not knowing going into it, not knowing at all what to expect, what I got was sort of a mix of escape room and Twin Peaks, and a bit of like wibbly wobbly timey wimey at times. A hint of like the King in Yellow in terms of like references to weird
Hmm.
to arts that could like change reality as we know it, and um it was weird, and weird is my thing. So I really, by the end, despite its rough edges, and it did have a few, I really enjoyed Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. And yeah, it is one that I really looked forward to coming home and playing a little bit of each day until I was done with it. Um, so yeah, very solid experience if you like adventure games, if you like puzzle heavy games. 8.5 out of 10, I would say for this one. Um, in terms of a game I'd recommend, or that it reminded me of, well, Dave already mentioned Deadly Premonition. There are definite Deadly Premonition vibes coming from this. Just like the oddball characters and the strange kind of uh, not quite normal goings on in the area where you are. Um, that's a very different sort of game, but I love the Deadly Premonition series to death. It is just fantastic. It's also a series where you never quite know what's going to happen next. Um, in terms of a puzzle slash adventure game, I'd recommend though. I think I'd have to go with The Witness because Cody mentioned the non-linearity of Lorelei, and The Witness is definitely a non-linear puzzle game for most of its running length. Like in that one, you wake up on an island and you can go pretty much anywhere that you can unlock. And the puzzles there are a lot more uniform in their design, but they still have a lot of variety to them. That is also a fantastic puzzle game. It's one of my favorite games of all time. And if you enjoy this sort of thing, The Witness should also be right up your alley. So that's my recommendation for this.
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm also going to go with an 8.5 for this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was a great experience. I had a few qualms with it, as we've, discussed in detail,
Hmm.
but in general, I would definitely recommend this game. Justin, I also love The Witness. That's like a top five all-time game for me.
Nice.
It's absolutely incredible. And so now I'm gonna preach about blueprints for a moment here. I've been waiting for this because listen, there's so many good things about this game that Blueprints cranks up to 11. And the same with The Witness too, really. Like if you like how like the whole game is a puzzle, like things that, seem like, oh, that might just be like some kind of decoration, but no, that's part of a puzzle. That's Blueprints, or like things that come together in like a brilliant aha moment, like A connects to B connects to C, and you can't see it at
Hmm.
first, but when you play it and you realize it's just incredible. Like you have a handful of leads at any given time that you're trying to track down the next piece of it, or you're trying to do a particular thing. You're stumped with something, and then you come back to it later when your brain is like in the right kind of place to solve that particular puzzle. Um, and you guys both said you like taking notes. Oh my God, let me tell you, I have I have a Google Doc, I have a Google spreadsheet, and I have a series of folders within folders of screenshots, hundreds of screenshots that I've taken from
Wow.
blueprints to try to piece things together. And if that sounds like a pain in the ass, it's not. So it's an incredible experience. Every time you think that you spend 75% of the game thinking that you're 75% done with the game. And then it just keeps revealing more and more layers. Um, so if any of this sounds appealing, if you like The Witness, if you like Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, I cannot enough recommend Blueprints. It it's when you first start playing it, you'll probably think, oh, this is a little fun, but I don't really see like the depth that people are talking about. But then the more you play it, the more you'll find. And it's incredible. All right,
You've been
I'm
talking
done
about that
now.
one for a while. Is that like where you at with that? Top 10, top five all time?
Oh, it's absolutely top five all time.
Wow.
It might end up number one all time. I don't know. Like we'll
Wow.
see. We'll see
Um,
what kind of landing it sticks. I will say I was trying to not look up anything online. I was like, even if it takes me months and months, I'm gonna play this game on my own. And for the most part, I've done that. There, I have barely looked online for a couple of things. Um, but in general, I'm trying to do without it. And I don't know. It's kind of a hard line to walk because I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
And sometimes that just means that I'm making assumptions that I shouldn't. And sometimes I'm going to be really happy that I didn't look up something online. So I don't know, but I really can't recommend that game enough.
okay.
You've definitely spoken very highly of it. I like that you also mentioned too the like the just there were in this game for me too like those aha moments where like the pieces connected and like There was probably a few times when I, verbally shouted like, "Oh my God!" Like it just something clicked and it made sense and it just worked. Awesome. Well, it gives Lorelei and the Laser Eyes a 8.67 average, which is pretty dang good, people. So
Nice.
that's a good, strong recommendation here from Friends Occasionally Not to Screen. I did want to ask you guys before we leave, though, how much time or how far did you actually get into the handheld games in this? Like, how much time did you actually put into those?
I spent probably like three, maybe four runs at each one. Not a ton of time, and I still don't really understand some of the rules for that. The one where you're cutting the boxes into like in half and trying to get things to go. I messed around with that one for a bit. Then I'm like, there's actual puzzles that I need to be focusing on, and I figured if that was important to something in the game proper, I'd go back to it, and I just never did.
Hmm.
Yeah, I had roughly the same experience, but maybe tried it even less.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I beat the first stage of the Lorelei game, which took me like three tries to even beat the first stage. And then I was like, went to the second stage and I was like, nope, done with this. And then the box splitting game I didn't get at all. And then I came back to it like way later in the game and was like, okay, I get what I'm doing now. Let's give it a shot. And promptly was not much better at it. I was better at it, but not much better at it. I was having a little bit of fun with the one where you move the two people though. That like it
That was neat.
reminded me of some game for the NES, and I tried to Google that and like I can't find evidence of like a two character NES game where you control two characters. So I must be imagining that wrong or something, but it was I think maybe I'm picturing like the box art for like Fire and Ice or Ice Climbers or something with two characters that's set up
Hmm.
like that, but it didn't seem to do anything in the game. I don't know, maybe there's an achievement you can get or something. I'm not sure, but um Justin, I was gonna ask you also, did you end up buying all of the figures out of the machine?
I didn't have enough money by the end because I bought like the coffee pass. I bought all three of the the
Broke.
games you could mail order. So I did not end up actually buying all of them, unfortunately.
I gotcha. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, same. I think I bought like 5 to 10 of them, somewhere in that range, because I, I liked that the game would tell you roughly where the money you were missing was. That's a nice
Oh yeah.
little
Yeah,
way to
did
help you backtrack if you want to do that. But
Yeah.
once I beat the game, I was done with the game. So,
I think the only thing I was missing was two legends or two stories that you could collect. And I don't know where I was supposed to get them from. I had this time, the like theater you go to in the game,
yeah.
and like you can spend money there. And I swear I did that once and then went back another time and there was an option to spend money on something else there, like a different thing you could buy. But every time I went back after that, it wasn't there. And so I don't know where you're supposed to get those. Like, so I finished the game with all of the figures from the machine, money left over, and still some dollars that I hadn't found, but like I don't know what else I could have spent the money on. I was confused at the end.
Uh,
So, and as far as I could tell, the figures didn't seem to help a ton. There was one that was kind of interesting, but didn't seem to tie into one of the handheld games. So, anyway.
okay.
All right. Well, anything else from you guys tonight?
Uh, Nothing's coming to mind.
No, that's it for me.
All right, well, very good. My daughter was mentioning that a boy was picking on her at school recently, and we were saying that that just means that he likes her. And I asked jokingly if he had tried to shove pencil lead into her butt yet, as I did when I was in ninth grade English, when I put a pencil under my shoelaces and then stuck it between the bars of the girl in front of me's desk and poked her in the butt. And she claimed I gave her like lead poisoning. So, Lorelei, if you're out there, I apologize if you happen to listen to this, but great game. If anybody wants to check out Lorelei and the Laser Eyes tonight, there we go. This has
Ah.
been Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing. That's Dave, that's Justin, I'm Cody. We will see you all next time. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.